Assalamu alaikum.
Assalamu alaikum, Dr. Rubina. So good to see you. Thank you for joining today.
Thank you for inviting me. Thank you very much. So we still have, I think, 5, 6 minutes.
Yes, we will begin exactly at 10 and we will have to wait for the participants. They are still joining.
Okay, okay. So actually, we have our PhD admission test today.
Okay.
So I think I can see that in 5 minutes. Okay. So
Okay,
I will
perfect. Perfect. Thank you. Thank you.
see you in 5 minutes.
Assalamu alaikum. Assalamu alaikum. A very good morning. I hope I am audible.
Yes,
Yes,
ma'am, you are audible.
I hope I am audible. Participants can use their chat box. Okay, Assalamu alaikum and a very good morning. Welcome to the second International Conference on Business Management and Social Sciences. This conference is being co-hosted by the National University of Sciences and Technology. We have three departments, School of Social Sciences and Humanities, and this is Center for Peace and NAS Business Schools. So we three departments are co-hosting the conference, and we are collaborating with the University of Michigan for this conference. This session, the session which will go in the first half is on individual workplace and well-being. Let me introduce myself as well. I'm Dr. Gulnaz Zahid from the School of Social Sciences and Humanities. I'm moderating this session. I have Sher Bano with me. I think you can see Sher Bano. She is assistant moderator. So this session will go for 3 hours, and we will begin with the keynote speaker, Professor Dr. Jawad Sayed. After that, we will have 6 sessions, and this session on the whole will be concluded by the session chair, Professor Dr. Rubina Hanif. So before we begin the session, please allow me to introduce our keynote speaker. Dr. Jawad, Professor Dr. Jawad Sayed is our invited keynote speaker. The professor is serving at in the organization. Is a professor of organizational behavior and leadership of LUMS. Dr. Sayed obtained his PhD in business from Macquarie University, Australia in 2008 and completed a postgraduate certificate in higher education at the University of Kent, UK. He also attended Institute of Management and Leadership in Education at the Harvard University Graduate School of Education. Prior to this, he also received a Master's of International Business degree from the Western University, Australia. Dr. Sayed has been serving at the international level and is contributing in various organizations and institutes. Dr. Sayed was conferred the Sitara Imtiaz on August 14, 2011 by the President of Pakistan for his contributions and public service in the field of equality and diversity management. Dr. Sayed currently serves as a member of several editorial boards, and his research interests include diversity management, international human resource management, business ethics, and knowledge management. So now we will be moving towards our keynote speaker, Professor Dr. Jawad Sayed. I invite you and thank you for joining today. Yes, and this keynote speech will go for 20 to 30 minutes. After that, we will move towards our presentation. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Dr. Gulnaz, for this introduction. I am humbled and flattered.
Yes, sir. Sorry, we can't hear you.
Can you hear me now?
Yes, I think there is some adjustment which requires to be done because the voice has to be a little more audible.
Can anyone hear me? Can you hear me, Dr. Rubina?
Yes, it's very clear.
Okay, so yeah, that's what I thought. Maybe Gulnaz, you need to, if somebody could message Gulnaz that she needs to really fix her system.
Dr. Gulnaz, we can hear Dr. Jawad. I think you need to fix your issue.
Thank you so much. Thank you, we did. Thank you.
Okay, so thank you once again, Gulnaz, and thanks to the organizers. I'm honored to participate in this important event and important conference being co-hosted and co-organized by various schools at NUST. Given that this specific conference, the second international conference on business management and social sciences, and the international conference on well-being, offering an interdisciplinary perspective, has a focus on organizational and individual workplace well-being. So I thought that maybe I should offer a few words on the topic of well-being. So I don't know whether I said this or not, but once again, Bismillahir Rahmanir Rahim, Assalamu alaikum and good morning, ladies and gentlemen. So the focus here of my talk is well-being and the workplace well-being. I would be offering some Western perspectives. I would be offering some Eastern perspectives, and I would leave the buffet to you to make a choice and perhaps identify possible applications in our workplace context. So first of all, let's very quickly start with my understanding of the notion of well-being. The way I look at well-being, ladies and gentlemen, it's a composite measure comprising many different dimensions of how good we as individuals feel at the physical, mental, and social level. Now, surely in a Western context, traditionally the focus is on physical well-being and on mental well-being and on social well-being. In some cases, there is also an emphasis on financial well-being, which is also tied with physical well-being. But in the Eastern context, I'm sure that many of you would appreciate that in addition to these dimensions of well-being, there is also an additional dimension of well-being, which is spiritual well-being. So that is also something which we may consider, that look, in addition to the physical and the social and the financial and the mental dimensions of well-being, spiritual dimension of well-being may also be considered in the way we conceptualize well-being, whether at work or outside work. Now, WHO, the World Health Organization, offers a very interesting perspective on health. And within that perspective on health, they offer a definition which also incorporates well-being. So for example, according to WHO, health is a state of complete physical, mental, and social well-being. So once again, you see that the way at the WHO level, health is being defined, it comprises once again these three dimensions: the physical well-being and the mental well-being, and the social well-being. So if we were to situate in this concept or this construct within the context of workplace, then ladies and gentlemen, we may refer to the ILO's definition, that how does ILO define workplace well-being. And according to ILO, the International Labour Organization, workplace well-being pertains to all dimensions of working life, from the quality and safety of the physical environment to how workers feel about their work, which is more to do with emotional, psychological well-being. The first was physical environment, so that was physical well-being. Their work environment, maybe social well-being, the climate at work, and the work organization. So once again, you see that the way WHO, the way ILO, they are focusing on well-being. Once again, there is a focus on the physical dimension of well-being, the social dimension of well-being, and the psychological dimension of well-being. So that is another perspective. Now, why exactly is this topic relevant in the context of workplace or in the context of wider societies? We have got some data. And much of that data, as we know, the census data, the survey data, in terms of reliability, it comes either from Europe or it comes from the US. So I've got some US empirics with me, which would also then give us a proxy of the situation or the extent of situation that we are facing in South Asia and other parts of the world. So for example, based on the US data, US surveys between 2007 and 17, like over a duration of 10 years, the percentage of medical claims associated with behavioral health, which includes mental health, more than doubled. So for example, in 2007, for example, if there were 100 claims being submitted in 2017, those 100, the number of 100 had become 200, or 1,000 had become 2,000. So that is one perspective. It shows the extent of the problem that we as a human society, we as formal organizations are facing. Now, National Center for Health Statistics, once again, it notes a suicide rate increase of around 35% between 1999 and 2018. So over a course of, once again, 19 years or 20 years, with the rate of growing, with the rate growing approximately 2% a year since 2006. Once again, it's a major concern that people are depressed to the level, they are stressed to the level, their work and life are imbalanced to the level that they are simply terminating their lives. And then there is another data point which says that the Health Care Cost Institutes, its 2018 report, it disclosed that per person spending on mental health admissions increased 33% over the course of 4 years between 2014 and 18. So something is off. As they say in Urdu, एहसास मुरव्वत को कुचल देते हैं आलात. It seems that something is off. एहसास मुरव्वत is being suppressed. Maybe our humanity is being suppressed. Something is off in our universities. Something is off in our government. Something is off in our societies. Something is off in our churches and mosques. Something is off in our workplaces. So this means that there is an issue which has to be fixed at multiple levels. So no single entity, or no single organization, or no single administrator is responsible for this. All of us are contributing to this unfortunate mess, and therefore all of us have to take the collective responsibility in order to first identify the problem, the root causes of the problem, and then make an attempt, a concerted attempt to fix it. So these were the empirics, ladies and gentlemen, which I wanted to share with you. But now let's go to the possible resolution that, look, all of this mess in terms of, for example, the increased depression, the increased separation rates in marriages, the increased workplace conflicts, the increased ethnic conflicts, gender conflicts, and you name it. How we can fix. So you see that once again, as I said, as I promised right at the onset, that look, we can make use of not only Western wisdom, but also we can make use of the Eastern wisdom. So let me take you to the South Isle, if I use that word, to the land down under, or in the proximity of land down under. Let me take you to the Maori wisdom from New Zealand, that how, for example, Maoris, they look at the issue of work-life balance, and what exactly do they suggest that how we can, or the modern society, the human society, wherever we are, we can address those issues. And they offer a model which is pretty interesting. They offer a model of a house. They say that, look, in order to put this house in order, we have to conceptualize the well-being as a house which has various components. So let me very quickly share with you their perspective of well-being. For them, there would be two roofs of the house if we consider that the roof is more triangular shapes, and one would be the mental and emotional well-being, and the other would be spiritual well-being. So this means that we cannot really conceptualize a notion of well-being unless there is a focus on not only on mental and emotional well-being, but also we have to consider the spiritual dimension of well-being. So they think that these are the two major elements of a roof. And then two side walls. For two side walls, they indicate physical well-being and family and social well-being. And this is pretty interesting that they're referring to social well-being, and all of us know that an important, rather most important part of social well-being is family well-being. So this means that we as workplaces, we have to make sure that work and life of our individual employees and managers, they are balanced. Because unless they are balanced, they would not be able to attain family well-being and social well-being. So that is also important. And for the land, and you see that those Maoris and those Aboriginal people and indigenous people, wherever they are very much connected to land. So here we are talking about the roof, we are talking about the two side walls, but at the same time, they say that land is also important. And for land, they talk about roots. So the way I interpret land is financial well-being, that like particularly in these days, we need to have resources. And those resources could be acquisition of land. Those could be, for example, to be able to earn a decent amount of money, decent amount of livelihood to support ourselves and our family members. So resources, which may be seen as a proxy for financial well-being, or at least that is how I look at it, ladies and gentlemen, or that would be my interpretation of the Maori wisdom. Now, let me share with you another important data point. Look, I shared with you the data point from the US. I shared with you the wisdom from New Zealand. Now, let me take you to the UK. And a very interesting survey was conducted by CIPD, which is Chartered Institute of Personnel and Development, only last year. It's a very recent survey, 2021 survey conducted by CIPD. And CIPD collected responses from professionals and senior human resource leaders in the UK. And in total, 668 people responded in their survey. And the focus of the survey was on well-being. And basically, the CIPD people, they wanted to look at how do organizations vary in their approaches to well-being, in their understanding of, but more than understanding of, how they approach well-being. So they compared the public sector with the private sector and also with the nonprofit sector. Very, very quickly, I can share the data with you. So for example, one data point was that, look, in terms of employee well-being is on senior leaders' agendas, only 68% of the private sector said that, yes, it is on the senior leaders' agenda. In a very good news, a relatively good news, 83% of the public sector and 82% of the non-profit sector, they said that it was on senior leaders' agenda. So this means, ladies and gentlemen, that those people, whether they are in public sector or private sector or non-profit sector, their senior leaders, their CEOs, CFOs, CEOs, all C-suite level people, management committee level people, they have to pay specific attention to the well-being of their employees. If it is not on their high agenda, if it is not in their strategic plan, perhaps it is time to pay attention to this. Now, the second statistic is rather discomforting. The second statistic pertains to whether organizations have a formal well-being strategy. The private sector, more than 50%, 53% actually, they did not have a strategy for employees' well-being or well-being at work. In 36% of the public sector organizations, there was no such strategy. And unfortunately, in more than 60% of the non-profits organization, it's surprising, but also unfortunate. More than 60% of the non-profits organization, they did not have a strategy on employee well-being. And in terms of whether their approach is reactive or proactive, 32% said that their approach of the private sector, 32% of the private sector said their approach was more reactive than proactive. Something has gone off, a major tragedy, a major incident or crisis has taken place, then they pay attention. Otherwise, there is no proactive approach towards understanding and managing work-life balance and employee well-being at multiple levels. Around 80% of the public sector, they had a reactive approach. And almost similar statistic was for non-profit organizations. So, ladies and gentlemen, these are disturbing statistics, and these are important statistics. We can imagine that in Pakistan, in India, and other parts of South Asia, we may have even more complex problem where there is relatively less attention paid to employees' rights and the issues of work-life balance. Look, I really need to conclude this. I have quite a few things to share with you, but let me very quickly share with you an example of a worthy example of an organization where there is a relatively holistic approach towards understanding and addressing work-life balance and employee well-being, in particular well-being. And here I would refer to Essex County Council. And Essex County Council's example I'm giving because they offer a holistic approach to well-being. And within that holistic approach, they have a clear and explicit focus on 4 dimensions of well-being. I can very quickly list those dimensions of well-being, and you in your own time can search it further. First is mental well-being. The second is physical well-being. Third is social well-being. And the fourth is financial well-being. And the Essex County Council is of the view that unless these 4 dimensions of well-being are addressed and paid attention to concurrently, it would not be possible to realize the real notion and business outcomes and benefits of well-being, not only for individuals, but also for organizations. So that is one perspective. So finally, I have to conclude these random thoughts, but let me conclude these random thoughts with something pretty interesting. Let me go to Allama Iqbal. Let me bring the Western wisdom to Eastern wisdom, and let me try to correlate that. Are there any things, for example, within Bange Dara or Bale Jibreel or Asrar-e Khudi or Rumuz-e Khudi? Unfortunately, and I'm using this word, unfortunately, that many of us, perhaps including myself, we do not understand and read and appreciate Iqbal beyond Lappe Aati Hai Dua. You see, ladies and gentlemen, Iqbal is a poet not only for Pakistan, but also for the entire world and for the generations to come. So my suggestion to you would be that for many things, if we have to understand Islamic history or history of Indian subcontinent, if we have to understand the philosophy, if we have to understand not only history and philosophy, but the approach to diversity, perhaps Iqbal offers a pretty interesting perspective, not only from South Asian perspective, but also based on Islamic wisdom. So anyway, let me share with you a couplet, in fact, a couple of couplets by Iqbal. There are 2 shares or 2 verses by Iqbal. Iqbal says in Bale Jibreel, Dilon ko, and let me invite all of you to try to correlate the dimension of well-being within these lines. So maybe this is a small task for all of you. And those of you who understand Urdu well, I'm sure that it would be pretty easy for you to understand this. So you see that once again, let me identify that well-being, according to my understanding, it has physical meaning, it has a social dimension, it has a spiritual dimension, and also it has a financial dimension. So let's listen to Iqbal. Iqbal says, Dilon ko markaze mehro wafa kar, make our hearts the seats of mercy and love. Is it not emotional and psychological well-being, ladies and gentlemen? Unless we make our hearts the centers of mercy and love and generosity and kindness, we cannot really ensure emotional and psychological well-being of our employees and our colleagues and our subordinates. And then he says, Harime kibriya se ashna kar, make them mentally cognizant of the sanctity of the divine. Harime kibriya, sanctity of the divine. But who can understand the divine unless we use our rational and mental skills, which is mental well-being? We have to be mentally fit to understand the nature of divine and the whole complex nature of the universe which has been created by the divine. And then Iqbal says, Jise nane javi bakhshi hai tune, to one who you gave modest means to live. Is it not financial well-being? Nane javi. It could be seen as a proxy for financial well-being. Use bazue Haider bhi atakar, Maula Ali Mushkil Kusha is being referred to. Is it not spiritual well-being? And then bazu is physical well-being. You see? So ladies and gentlemen, within this folk wisdom, within this Eastern wisdom, within this Islamic and South Asian wisdom, Iqbal has given us lesson in spiritual well-being, given us a lesson in financial well-being, in emotional and psychological well-being, and mental and spiritual well-being. But this, ladies and gentlemen, I offer my random and wayward thoughts on well-being in the context of workplace and organizations. But I am sure that like me, you are also looking forward to many valuable studies and many valuable papers which would be presented in the next 3 hours 3 hours or so. With this, I conclude my talk, and I hand it back to Dr. Gulnaz. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much, Professor. You helped us understand the importance of strategic and holistic perspective of well-being. Yes, and definitely bringing in our own context is really helpful. We have a great history of philosophers and scholars and worthy work in the area of well-being. So thank you for bringing in your thoughts on the basis of empirical works as well. Now, I think we should proceed towards the session. Those participants and presenters who have presentations and who wish to join another room, they have already interest in another room, that is room C. You can join there. We have here room B, and we will proceed with the presentations which have to be done under room B. So I'll wait for a minute before we proceed. So this is room B. Participants and presenters who wish to join another room, they can join room C. So now we can proceed. Yes, we have 6 presentations, and we will begin with the presenter Irfa Lai. Her presentation is on employee well-being, mental health, and performance during the pandemic outbreak, exploring the role of training and development. Please attach your presentation if you can, and if you cannot, let us know. We will help you out. The presenter is Irfa Lai, and Ifra Lai, and she's from Asia E University, Malaysia. So the presentation will go for 15 minutes. Thank you.
Assalamu alaikum. I hope my voice and my voice is clear and my slides are visible to everyone.
Yes, please proceed.
Okay, thank you. Assalamu alaikum and good morning to everyone. I would like to thank NAST and other organizers of this conference for providing me this opportunity and the learning experience. Before moving forward, I would like to briefly tell you about myself. This is Ifra Lake, internationally certified human resource professional working as L&D specialist with MDC developments and a PhD scholar at Asia University, Malaysia. Today's topic is employee well-being, mental health, and performance during the pandemic outbreak, exploring the moderating role of training and development. The emergence of COVID-19 as a new infectious disease pose a significant threat to human life. Fear and dread of this pandemic are growing as a complicated issue that affects the society as a whole rather than being a medical issue. In comparison to the stress encountered in normal life, the new pandemic causes tremendous stress that is uncontrollable and pervasive. As a result, mental health issues may be a significant burden on businesses, organizations, and research that contributes to solving these issues was critically needed, which is also the purpose of this conference. With the declaration of COVID-19 outbreak, a pandemic by World Health Organization, companies with the declaration of COVID-19 outbreak, a pandemic by World Health Organization, companies faced new challenges as they were obliged to move to totally remote working. Their employees' well-being, mental health have decreased as a result of unforeseen changes. Their physical, psychological, and financial concerns were increased. Their confusion, negative emotion, as well as their performance due to the technical issues by working from home. In the last 20 years, mental health care has shifted significantly towards encouraging well being and away from avoiding mental health concerns. According to the scientific evidence, several behavioral interventions aimed at improving psychological well being, such as employee trainings, positive psychological interventions, or life review therapy are effective in raising psychological well-being levels. During the difficult times of the pandemic, training and development are critical to ensure that the workforce has the necessary skills and knowledge to do the job while working from home. Organizations must ensure that their workers are directed to the most reliable and scientifically confirmed information as part of their wellness initiatives, given the abundance of material available on the internet, particularly on the social media. The rationale of this study is the COVID pandemic has aggravated the need for a well defined strategic employee strategy that will aid in decreasing employees' physical, psychological, as well as financial concerns while preserving their mental health and well being. Although numerous researchers have revealed several causes of declining employee well being, no study has yet explored the variables produced by the attributes of perceived pandemic stress. In the event of COVID-19 pandemic, training and development as a comprehensive strategy addressing an individual's stress factors and recognizing the link between employee wellness, mental health, and performance may be considered a feasible option. In the context of COVID 19, the study aims to answer the question whether training and development can help reduce the perceived pandemic stress and improve the employees' well being, mental health, and performance. Theoretical perspectives. The relationship between the study variables, the relationship between the attributes of perceived pandemic stress and employee well-being, mental health, and performance were supported by World Health Organization, Grazings, Williams, Dimoff, and their major findings of their researches were a new pandemic cause stress that is uncontrollable and persuasive, and workforce place stress causes a negative correlation between employee job performance and the company's performance. And the relationship between the attributes of perceived pandemic stress in employee well-being and mental health with the moderating role of training and development was supported by William and Palmeen, Panachal and Dimoff and Kolove in 2019 to 2020. And the major findings of their studies with training and development have been defined as a motivational approach with the goal of facilitating individuals' behavioral changes that lead to greater personal and professional performance. Training and development activities are effective in lowering employee stress during the pandemic, likewise improving individuals' well-being and performance. However, no research has looked into the function of training and development practice in moderating the relationship between stress traits and well-being, mental health, and performance in workplace during the pandemic. The research hypothesis, there are six research hypotheses, in which the first three hypotheses are related to the independent and dependent variable, as attributes of perceived pandemic stress has a significant negative impact on employee well-being, mental health, and performance. And the other three hypotheses are related to the moderating role of the training and development on the relationship between independent and dependent variables. The theoretical framework of this study uses a qualitative technique to analyze the attributes of employees' reported pandemic stress, which is then incorporated into high-level components of recognized physical, psychological, and financial concerns, which are collectively called as attributes of perceived pandemic stress. Furthermore, to ensure the study's purpose of verifying the influence of perceived pandemic stress attributes on employee mental health, employee well-being, and employee performance, as well as the moderating impact of training and development, in this regard, the framework was created. The sixth hypothesis, along with the proposed model of this research, is detailed in the figure presented in the slide, in which the attributes of perceived pandemic stress are independent variable, the employee well-being, employee mental health, and performance are dependent variables, and training and development is acting as a moderator. Considering the scope of the research problem in hand, the investigation was thus designed as a causal study using a qualitative research approach to examine the relationship between study variables. The study participants were employed in 5 main service sectors of Pakistan, including financial services, computer, IT, education, healthcare, and real estate. Non-probability convenience sampling technique was applied for sample selection. The study collected the data from a sample of 520 participants through the distribution of questionnaires using online tools, followed by the test of validity and reliability. The study analyzed the data through various based statistical software called SMART PLS. The results and discussions of this study. The demographic analysis included 4 questions about the respondent age, gender, professional experience, and their current designation in the company. The majority of the respondents were male, with 78% of the total sample, and rest of them were females, 22%. The respondents were mostly in the age group of 30 to 40, 63.5%. And according to the data, 71% respondents were those who had below 10 years of professional experience, and the majority were working in the middle level management. For the assessment of Mayerman model, the convergent and discriminant validity were tested using confirmatory factor analysis. To determine the convergent validity factor, loadings, average variance extracted, and the composite reliability were examined. In the SMART PLS, a process of bootstrapping with 500 resamples were performed. The findings of the structural model analysis is summarized in the figure as well as in the table. The hypothesis anticipated that attributes of perceived pandemic stress has a significant negative impact on the employee well-being, mental health, and performance, as the t-values of all the hypotheses are greater than 1.64 and the beta values are negative. The primary goal of a moderation test was to determine if the moderator variable increases or decreases the negative impact of the independent variable on the dependent variable. Consequently, the study investigates the moderating impact of training and development on the relationship between attributes of perceived pandemic stress and employee well-being, mental health, and performance. And the results of the hypothesis 2A, 2B, and 2C predicts the moderating impact of the training and development on the relationship between attributes of perceived pandemic stress and employee well-being, mental health, and performance. The key findings of this research is that the work stress is caused by employees' physical, psychological, and financial concerns about infectious disease, and the work stress has detrimental impact on overall work performance, mental health, and well-being of employees. The findings also shows that with the application of training and development techniques in the workplace reduces the negative effect of the pandemic stress, likewise improving the well-being, mental health, and performance of the employees. Now, the implications and limitations of the study. The findings of the study have variety of implications for organizations concerned with employee performance, mental health, and well-being during a pandemic or other crisis situations in general. The study has a broad implications for employee-related research in all sort of businesses and organizations. The quantitative and qualitative findings of the study give a hopeful empirical evidence that organizations may use training and development practices to improve employee well-being, mental health, and performance during a pandemic. Organizations can manage employees' work and deal with the pandemic stress, along with the response in a new scenario with the help of training professionals. This study has
Excuse me, you have 5 minutes left. Thank
Okay,
you.
ma'am. Okay, thank you. The study has certain limitations which have an impact on the robustness of the obtained result. First, the study is constrained by its cross-sectional data, which means that the participants are observed only at a single point in time, not across time. And secondly, the study was acquired through a self-administered question, which a self-administered questionnaire, which may raise concerns about the accuracy and precision of the feedback. Let me conclude my presentation with that. The moderating role of training and development has been examined in reducing the negative impact of perceived pandemic stress and improving the well-being, mental health, and performance of employees. Having an effective performance and well-being improvement plan that helps organizations achieve better outcomes while keeping their employees engaged and in excellent mental health condition is critical throughout the pandemic. As a result, the research contributes to the development of empirical evidence in the context of world-class scenario, the COVID pandemic, as well as possibly other crisis situation. So that's all from my side. Thank you very much, all.
Thank you
Thank
very
you
much.
very much.
देखिए मेरे पास एक होगा ना ये
Assalamu alaikum. Can we ask the questions?
I think Dr. Gulnaz is trying to fix her mic issue. Yes, Mr. Muhammad Usman, I think you can ask the question. Presenter is with us.
All right. Thank you very much. Dr. Ifra, it was a nice presentation. It was very enlightening one, given the pandemic disease we are facing. I have a couple of questions regarding your research. First, although it was not presented, I mean to say, you presented the results of effects of interaction terms on the outcome variables, but you did not share the simple slopes or the slope test that could enlighten us about the how the effects of your predictor on your outcome are changing at different values of your moderator. So if those figures are with you, can you enlighten us whether how the training and development is affecting the main relations, whether it is strengthening or weakening? This is my first question.
Ifra, would you like to answer this question? Miss Ifra Laik, are you with us? I don't know. Ifra Laik, are you with us? I'm sorry, I think she is also not with us.
It's fine, ma'am. No problem.
I think you can write question in chat box and she can answer there as well.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Any other participant who want to ask question, they can write in chat box. So Edmund, can you please guide us?
Yeah, I think if we do not have questions, can we proceed towards the second presentation?
There are questions, but presenter is not with us.
Yes, the presenter needs to unmute the mic. Ifra, are you here? Please unmute the mic. Yeah, I think she's not with us.
Hello, Miss Dr. Kulna. Sorry for the interruption. Yes, I did not, I think, hear the question. Could you please repeat?
Yes, please
What's
repeat
the
the
question?
All right, ji. Thank you very much. Assalamu alaikum. Ifra, my name is Mohammad Usman Anwar Beg. I'm lecturer from National University of Modern Languages. My question is about your research, and that is, you have shared that interaction effects of your moderator are significant. Unfortunately, I was unable to find the slope tests or the simple slopes. If you do have those results, can you tell us about the moderating effect of training and development on your mean relations? What were those effects, whether they were increasing or whether they were strengthening or they were weakening the effects? Thank you very much.
Yes, Muhammad, Dr. Usama. Yes, I have those results, and the moderating effect was strengthening the relationship of strengthening the relationship of independent and dependent variables. The slopes are positive. The beta values, if you when I have shared my slides in which the table was the figures were given in the table, and the beta values as the beta values were 0.763 0.720, so that means the moderating variable has shown a significant positive impact on the relationship between the perceived pandemic stress and the well-being, mental health, and performance of the employees. Due to the time shortage, I have not explained in detail about the results of the study. I have just mentioned the major findings of my study due to the time shortage.
May I ask another question?
Yeah, sure.
Okay, my second question is about the clustering effect. You have collected data using convenience sampling. I think it's absolutely fine. But I want to know that were there groups of respondents in your study, or every respondent was independent from each other? For example, whether your respondents every respondent came from different organization, or there were some clusters of respondents who came from one organization, another cluster came from another organization. So what was the scenario in your research?
Yeah, it was actually the I have chosen the convenience sampling, but it was cluster as obviously for the theoretical generalizability. I have chosen the different sectors to gain the theoretical generalizability in this research.
Okay, if you have a clustered sample, then how did you control the clustering effects? Because usually we do not use OLS based or regressions or structural regression modeling. We usually, or even we don't use ML, maximum likelihood uh, structure of regression modeling. Rather, we use hierarchical linear modeling in such if there are clustered samples. So how did you ensure that the clustering effect was controlled out of your results?
I have not actually completely implement the clustering sampling of in my research. I have taken the sample from various sectors for the purpose of only the theoretical generalizability, not for further refining into the clusters.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Okay, do we have any more questions from other participants? Okay, if not, then we will proceed towards our second presentation. Our second presentation is on career barriers faced and coping strategies used by epileptic employees, a qualitative study. Presenter is Kainat Bangash from NAS. Thank you. Kainat, please attach your PowerPoint presentation and let us know if you need any support in this regard. Kainat, yes, please.
Okay, ma'am.
Yes, now we can see your presentation and your time starts now. You have 15 minutes.
Assalamu alaikum. Am I audible?
Yes, Kainat, please proceed.
Okay, Assalamu alaikum. I am Kainat Bangash from National University of Sciences and Technology, Islamabad. And my topic is career barriers faced and coping strategies used by epileptic employees, and it's a qualitative study. So epilepsy is a chronic, non-communicable disease of brain that affects around 50 million people worldwide. And it is characterized by recurrent seizures. Seizures are the brief episodes of involuntary movement that may involve a part of body or the entire body and is sometimes accompanied by loss of consciousness and control of bowel or bladder function. So the rationale of my study is that epilepsy is a chronic illness with a wide variety of physical symptoms, psychological symptoms, social and emotional restrictions and obstacles. There is a strong research base for impact of epilepsy on employment rate of people with epilepsy, workplace discrimination, and the stigma associated with epilepsy worldwide. But in Pakistan, we lack research base, and epilepsy is understudied with reference to economic needs or support provided to epileptic employees. So this research has explored the career barriers faced by people with epilepsy, influence of epilepsy on their work experience, and the coping strategies they use to deal with those barriers. So about theoretical framework, first ICF model by WHO, it is an illness model. So structures is basically the impact of epilepsy. Activities refer to the work abilities and skills of people with epilepsy, whereas participation refers to the employment situation for people with epilepsy. Personal factors basically correspond to the internal and psychosocial factors of people with epilepsy. For example, coping style, which is the main focus of my study, that how people with epilepsy cope with the barriers they face. And environmental factors refer to the stigma at workplace and in society toward people with epilepsy. So my research objectives are to identify the career barriers faced by people with epilepsy and to explore how epilepsy influence their work deal with the barriers they face at workplace. So my research questions are: what is the perception of people suffering from epilepsy about career barriers? What is the influence of illness on their daily work experience and social interactions at work? That is career barriers, and what strategies they use to cope with the barriers they face at their workplace. So about literature review, the first study is by Quick 15, and they found that people with epilepsy are more likely to live with lower income levels or be unable to work or be unemployed. Then Wu, Lim, Chu, and Tan in 2016 found that people with epilepsy have poor social outcomes, including marriage rate and higher unemployment rate. Then Krumholz, Hope, and Sanchez in 2016 found that people with epilepsy specifically identify social consequences of epilepsy and seizures, particularly problems with driving and employment. Then Mugambate and Zimba in 2018 found that people with epilepsy face high risk of unemployment. Then there is another study by Bautista and Rudaica. They found that there is a greater fear of discrimination at work in unemployed patients than those who are who are employed. Then Savant and Kinra in 2015 found that epilepsy is commonly associated with psychosocial difficulties, prejudices, and discrimination, which have an impact on daily life of people with epilepsy. Then Gaike and Donker in 2018 found that people with epilepsy are stigmatized and discriminated in employment and intimate relationships, with the incidence of seizures being the major reason. Then Voyages et al. In 2017 found that people with epilepsy suggested some solutions which can help them to overcome difficulties which they encounter during their participation in work. So now this is the literature worldwide, but it lacks anything explaining about in-depth knowledge of the coping strategies and barrier. Most of these studies are quantitative studies which use scales, and they just predict that there is employment. This is the employment rate. This is the unemployment rate. So my research methodology, my research design was qualitative phenomenological research, and population was people with epilepsy who are full-time employed with at least 1 year of working experience. Then my sampling method was purposive sampling and snowball sampling. Data collection was through Skype or phone interviews because of COVID, and then data analysis was thematic analysis. So ethical considerations was repo building was a real challenge in online interviews. Then access to technology and internet was another problem. Then non-verbal cues, verification of identity, it was also very difficult. Then informed consent because it was online, autonomy and confidentiality.
Kainat, I can't see your presentation. Hello, Kainat, are you with us?
I think she is disconnected.
Yes, I think we can wait for at least 1 or 2 minutes. Maybe she's back. Else we can have a discussion with her if she cannot continue with PPT. So it's a great challenge. This technology is impacting our well-being for today, at least. Okay. So perhaps, yeah, she is disconnected. I can't see her. Professor Rubina, do you suggest us to continue and move forward?
I think if you can contact her on telephone, she can tell
Okay.
the exact.
Okay, perfect, perfect. Yes, now I can see the PPT. Kainat, I hope you are back.
Yes, ma'am. Sorry for the interruption.
That's all right. We do understand the technology issues. You can continue with the findings, please.
Okay, so these are my findings. There are three types of career barriers identified. First were personal barriers, then external barriers, and then transport barriers. So, in personal barriers, there were physical symptoms, psychological symptoms, after effects of fates, side effects of medicines, uncertainty, insecurity, and low self efficacy. So, participants reported that epilepsy symptoms could cause physical and cognitive limitations that affected their ability to perform in their current tasks. Then, psychological symptoms were depression and low self esteem. After effects of which includes fever, spasm, and all that, and that effects are accompanied by drowsiness and weight gain and sleep apnea and muscle spasm. Then uncertainty. Then there was an uncertainty because of these symptoms. The variability of epilepsy symptoms could also make planning and scheduling difficult, and they had to be flexible and had to set daily schedules aside if their symptoms were acting up. So the participants felt that others' reaction to illness was a sense that others doubted their job competency. So the participants were concerned that others assumed their illness would interfere with their job competency. And perceptions of incompetency or not being able to handle it may eventually play out in self-fulfilling prophecy, because people with epilepsy could be denied the developmental opportunities necessary to build their skills, and it leads to low self-efficacy. Then moving towards external barriers, misconceptions, myths, and discrimination and stigma is very common at workplace. Participants felt that they were being stereotyped or discriminated by others' misconception of their illness, and it frustrated them when they felt like they were seen as the poster child for their illness condition instead of as an individual who happens to have an illness. Then there is a lack of support in society. Most of the participants reported that there is no support provided to them to cope up with this illness. Then many participants told stories of being involuntarily demoted following epilepsy episodes to less demanding and less rewarding jobs because of having seizures at workplaces. And also this led to problems in their promotion. And many participants reported that they were involuntarily shifted to other jobs which were less demanding, less motivating, and less rewarding because of epilepsy. Then there are
Kainat, 5 minutes, sorry, 5 minutes are left.
okay, ma'am. Okay, then there were transport barriers. Many participants reported that they face issues in their work at their workplaces because of the transport barriers, because they can't drive because of epilepsy, and that leads to lowering their career opportunities. Then, if psychosocial support is present, it helps in coping and it helps in developing coping strategies. There are two types of coping strategies. First is personal strategies, and second is organizational strategies. So, in personal strategies, basically, if you go for seeking professional help from a psychologist, it help you to manage with your psychological symptoms. It help you to manage with discrimination, stigma, low self efficacy, and all that. And second is avoid disclosure. All of the participants recommended avoiding disclosure in Pakistani context to get the opportunity and to get employment. Then acceptance is the key to coping. Avoidance is another strategies, then pushing through. And many participants reported that they reprioritize their career success in order to feel career satisfaction. And they lowered their career goals to keep going. Then, if we go towards organizational strategies, these are creating awareness, training, need of quota, and sick leave policies. So, the main concern of participants was sick leave policy, because they reported that there are sick leave policies for those who are disabled. But epilepsy is a chronic illness and it is not recognized as a disability in Pakistani organizations. So, there's a great need of quota for epileptics and also sick leave policies. And this study has described the career barriers that people with epilepsy face and the strategies they use to deal with those barriers. And the main thing is that epilepsy population often avoids disclosure and is not discoverable easily. So the major goal of this study is to increase awareness and understanding of the difficulties and challenges of working with epilepsy, especially in Pakistan. Then people with epilepsy can benefit from knowing how others have adopted to working with epilepsy and which personal coping strategies they use. And employers can benefit from understanding more about the kind of career problems this population experiences and which organizational strategies can be used to make working environment better and welcoming for epileptics. So implications, so the result of my study are useful for health sector, epileptics, educationists, counselors and psychologists, social welfare organizations, then employers, vocational rehabilitation centers, and policymakers. So limitation of this study are that the data is self-reported and it led to respondents' bias. And secondly, the duration of illness plays very important role in coping and adaptation, but it is not explored in my study. Thirdly, it is specific to Pakistani context only. And fourth, because the interviews were online technology based, most of the participants were from middle class or upper class. So it leads to exploring problems of a specific population only. So these are the references. Thank you.
Thank you, Kainat. Now we can proceed towards question and answer session. Yes, dear participants, do you have questions?
May I ask question?
Yes, please.
Kainat, can you please highlight your data analysis strategies? You told that you have taken interviews online. Were
Yes,
these
ma'am.
interviews recorded, and then how did you analyze the data?
Yes, these interviews were recorded, audio recorded interviews.
Then what particular strategy you used to analyze?
I transcribed the data and
I think there is some technology issue and she'll be back soon.
Okay, it's all right. You can move forward, I think.
Okay, perfect. So, yes, I think she's not here due to some technology issue. We will move forward towards our third presentation. Our third presentation is on impact of job embeddedness on employee well-being, the roles of career adaptability and learning commitment. The presenter is Aksar Jalil. She is from Rifa International University, Islamabad. Please attach your PowerPoint presentation. Thank you. And now you can begin with your presentation and you have 15 minutes. Thank you. Aksa, I can't hear you. Please unmute your mic. Please unmute your mic. Thank you. 1 minute, please. Dr. Rubina, can you hear Aksa?
No,
Not really?
no.
Okay, thank you for confirming. Aksa, please check with the system. Rest, we can give you time, or we can begin with the other presentation. If there is something you can inform in the chat box.
I think better to take another presenter.
Okay. So, yes, Dr. Rubina Koser is with us. Rubina Koser for the other presentation. May I hear you, Rubina Koser? Okay, she's also not here. I'll move forward. The other presentation, by Abdul Rashid and Abdul Aziz. Are you here?
Yes, I'm here.
Yes. Would it be comfortable for you if we proceed with your presentation? Is it all right for you?
Yeah, it's all right because I have meeting after this, so I will be very thankful if you can ask me to present now.
Perfect. It would be great. So please attach your presentation. Meanwhile, Aksa Jalil, there was some voice issue. We can look into it, how we can fix it. And Abdul Rashid, Abdul Aziz, you can proceed with your presentation. Please attach the PowerPoint slide.
Okay, but I think the previous presenter should stop sharing first.
Yes, please, Aksa Jalil. Yes. Yes, Rashid, Abdul Aziz, please share your presentation.
Okay, thank you. I'm sharing now.
Yeah, thank you so much. If you need any help, please let me know. So Abdul Aziz will be presenting on achieving sustainable happiness among lecturers. Does it matter? So this sounds to be very interesting.
Can
Admin, please guide him. Okay, it's fine.
you see my slide? Can you see my slide?
Yes, yes, please. Can you see the slides?
Yes, we can see slide. Please continue.
Dear presenter, we will move the slides for you if you can see the slides.
Dr. Rashid, are you with us?
Okay, I think we have to wait for 2 minutes. There might be some issue at his side. So
I think he himself is trying to share.
I can stop share for him if because we have shared from here. Abdul Rashid, we can support you. He's not here. Okay, I think he's joining again. There must be some technology issue. Hello, Aksa, are you here? May I hear you? Hello, Aksa, are you here? May I hear you? Okay. Dr. Abdul Rashid, are you here? Please check. Not really. Okay. Shumail Rizwan, are you here with us? Can you please check?
Yes, ma'am, I'm here.
I think there is some technology issue and we will have to wait. I'm sorry for inconvenience. Okay, Dr. Rashid is trying to join. And other presenters, if you are here, please just put a message in the chat box for us. Aksa, if you are here, can we move towards your presentation? Because right now, Dr. Abdul Rashid has some technology issue. If this is comfortable
okay
for
now?
you, because we have to complete the session on time. So if you are here, can we begin with your presentation?
Dr. Gulnaz, Dr. Rashid is present with us.
Okay. Aksa, please connect your presentation. Aksa, can you hear me? देखिए वहाँ पे है Aksa, is she there in the list of participants? Okay.
Aksa, if you're speaking, we can't hear you.
Aksa, we can't hear you. Though your mic is unmute, but I can't hear you.
Now, can you hear me? Hello? Ma'am, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Thank you, ma'am. Can I start my presentation?
Yes, please.
Assalamu alaikum. My name is Aksa Jalil and I am PhD scholar from IFA International University,
Dear
Islamabad.
participants, can you see the PowerPoint presentation?
No, we can't.
No, it's not visible. Aksa, the presentation is not visible and we can't hear you. Though you're trying to share, but we can't hear you.
Ma'am, now it's share.
No, it's not. It's not visible.
No, ma'am, it's here.
No, not yet. Yes.
Now it's visible.
Aksa, please can you write in the chat box? We do
Okay.
not see the issue resolving. And then we will again have to move forward because we have two other presenters waiting. Say like Dr. Abdul Rashid is back, I think. And Shumail is also here. Shumail is also here. So please
Okay, ma'am.
confirm in the chat box, Abdul Rashid, if you are here. Dr. Abdul Rashid,
Yeah,
if
I'm
you are
here. Sorry for disconnected just now. Can I start now?
Yes, ma'am, I stopped my sharing.
Thank you so much, Dr. Rashid. I think, Aksa, you need to resolve, please. I don't know where the issue is coming from. So now we will proceed with the presentation by Dr. Rashid. Abdul Aziz, please, can you attach your PowerPoint presentation or else I can attach for you?
Can you see the slide?
Yes, perfect. Now we can see the PowerPoint presentation. And your time starts if the technology supports your presentation. You will have 15 minutes, please.
Okay, Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. And good evening to everyone. I'm sorry first because my line was not so good here because it's raining in Malaysia. So I'm Abdul Rashid bin Abdul Aziz. I'm from Islamic University Science of Malaysia, USIM. Maybe some of you know USIM or maybe not. Maybe after this we can collaborate anything project academic, you know. Okay, this is actually my PhD. This right before COVID-19 in 2019. So this research was conducted in 2019. So it's basically on the happiness among lecturers. As introduction, as we know, lecturers in Malaysia have so many tasks. It's incur like teaching, student supervision, research, consultancy, publication, administration, service to society, and so on. So as we also know, the depression is a global health issue that has become a polemic nowadays, with more than 300 million patients worldwide, and the number continues to rise. This is according to WHO 2019. And the burden of this mental problem continue to be the biggest liability and deep impact on health, social, and economic aspect. In Malaysia, based on the National Health and Mobility Survey, NHMS 2019, nearly half of the million Malaysian who are adults are found to experience symptoms of stress and depression. And study done by Global Market Research and Public Opinion Specialists 2020 revealed that Malaysians report the highest level of stress as compared to global. The stress is due to the changes in work routines and organization. But for lecturers, I think similar. I think the similar job all over the world, whether in Malaysia or in Pakistan or any part of the world. I think the burden is increasing during the COVID-19 as well, because the lecturer have to adapt, you know, with the new technologies, the digital teaching and learning, and ODL, open distance learning methods. So the rationale of this research is Lecturers are among professionals in Malaysia. They play a vital role in education system in determining the quality of education itself and the quality of graduate that will further affect the graduate employability. And happiness can relieve stress, according to Dinas Biswas, and I think many research before, conducted in well-being or happiness show that actually happiness can be one of the buffer zone for stress in workplace. So the objective of the research to I try to expand my slide. Okay. This study was conducted to observe the level of happiness and to identify the factor that affect the happiness in order to obtain the sustainability. So the theoretical framework for this research is based on the SHM, Sustainable Happiness Model, introduced by Yubamski, Sheldon, and Skate in 2005. Okay, basically the theories is actually telling us that apart from the personality as a set point factor or life circumstances like your gender, your workplace, your status, your education level, there are other part of major thing that actually contribute to happiness or well-being. That is we call intentional activity. Almost 40% contributed into this factor. So intentional activity can be divided into few factors. Like cognitive, such as optimism, avoiding social comparison, self-control ability, and savoring life joy. While the other part is motivation, including goals, gratitude, forgiveness, and the behavior aspect include act of kindness. In Islam, we have sedekah, we have philanthropic action, social relationship, self-care, and self-development. And also the religion. Okay. But there's no much research on religions and happiness actually in Malaysia. So in my research, I just want to actually to see from this theory perspective on lecturers in Malaysia. But I put some of the questionnaire related to religion just to know, is it the religion also contribute into the happiness in workplace among lecturers? Okay, my research question is, what is the level of happiness among lecturers? Are the intentional activity able to predict the lecturer happiness? What is the main predictive factor of happiness? So this is basically a survey analysis, survey research design, which is use the descriptive analysis to describe the distributions of the mean level of happiness among lecturers, while inference analysis using the multiple regression to determine the factor that influence the sustainable happiness. The instrument used in this research is subjective happiness scale, the scale of positive and negative experience, pain, and the personal well-being index. The sampling is a stratified sampling, also known as layered sampling, which is we divided lecturers into a few type of the lecturers, like the senior lecturers, the associate professors, and the professor. So this is a quantitative study, basically. So the result for the discussion is according to the data, the happiness level among lecturers is 65.5 has highest score. This, as I said before, this is actually did before the pandemics. I think it is good if I can actually repeat this during the pandemic to see whether the numbers still remain or maybe increase, during the pandemics. But however, the second highest score obtained from the respondents show alarming situation where as many as 27 people or 4.2% of lecturers are at the low level of happiness. So for the influence of the intentional activity, the result of multiple regression analysis found that intentional activities able to predict the lecturer's happiness, which is the overall contribution of intentional activity as much as 86%. And gratitude and forgiveness is a component from motivation have been positively correlated with satisfaction with life, positive effect, and happiness. This is based on the construct, in happiness that I I study. This is supported by the finding from Ibomisky, which revealed that intentional activity contribute 40% of individual happiness. The main predictive for happiness, according to the intentional activity, the first is cognitive. The cognitive, including optimism, avoiding social comparison, the self-control or coping, and savoring life joy. So this is basically the cognitive component. So the R-square show the 82.9% changes in happiness variable are caused by the intentional activity, which is related to cognitive component. The percentage continue to rise as predictive factor of intentional activity in religion component accounted, which contribute to 86% of lecturers' happiness. So the cognitive, basically the first, and then followed by the motivation, and the last one is religion. The finding in this study also shows that the religion influence lecturer happiness, and the religion component also correlated with the happiness. Marjan and Ali 2019 revealed a significant positive relationship between happiness and religious attitude of adolescent. So this is supported by the this research. In the Islamic perspective, Masri and Adam state that to achieve happiness in Muslim community is through numbers of factors such as good health, peacefulness, and has strong attachment with the strengthening of the spiritual aspect through the practice of Islamic teaching, such as zikir, pray, and read the Quran. And this is at once can build an inner wealth. Actually, I just find the Islamic perspective because there's so many support from the cognitive and motivation based on the previous research. So I think the religious is a new things that we see in Malaysia among lecturers, because previously we just see from the psychological aspect, like I said, mental, emotion, and as well as the motivation aspect. But to see from Islamic aspect is still rare, or still not many researchers done in Malaysia. So in conclusion, the majority of the lecturers in Malaysia in higher learning institutions are happy with the practice of intentional activity. Indeed, lecturers' happiness is crucial and vital in order to ensure the lecturer's performance is at the optimum level in producing a quality student. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Dr. Abdul Rashid Abdul Aziz presented from the University Saint Islam, Malaysia, and he has helped us understand the importance of intentional activities which revolve around cognitive, motivational, and religious acts. Now we will move towards questions and answers. Perhaps we have questions around this presentation.
Can I have some? Actually, the intentional activity is something that we do in our daily life. It's something that we do on purpose, like, you know, like we forgive someone, like we avoid ourselves from other person, like, you know, using the new era of revolution, you know, we have social media. Most people like to compare themselves with others in social media. So this is thing that actually mean by intentional activity. I mean, our gratitude, our forgiveness, our goals in life, our act of kindness, etc.
Thank you for elaborating. And now we can have questions from our participants. Yes, we can have question and answer session. So please come up with your questions, and that would be very helpful.
Assalamu alaikum, dear doctor. This was a very nice presentation. I was just wondering after watching your presentation that can there be some cases when happiness of lecturers can lead to deterioration in their performance? Can you think of any such case that happiness is, instead of increasing the performance, rather it is decreasing the job performance of lecturers? Is it possible?
Sorry, doctor, do you mean increasing the job performance?
I'm repeating my question. You have identified and you have found that happiness of lecturers uh, can lead to their increased performance, their enhanced performance. But can you think of any situation in which the happiness of lecturers can actually decrease their job performance? Is it possible?
Oh, how the lecturer happiness can increase performance, right? In workplace, right? Okay. As we know that actually happiness is like a buffer zones of the stress. As we know, the continuum between happiness, well-being, and the other side is mental health issue. I mean mental problem. So if someone, gain more positive emotion in their daily life, we know the definitions of happiness is the existence or the presence of positive emotion and the less of negative emotion in your daily life. So if you can actually increase your happiness and sustain your happiness, that's another factor. According to Yubomisky, actually happiness need to be sustained because happiness is basically temporary. It's just a ego boost, it's just a sensation. So we have to sustain that happiness. In order to sustain the happiness, we have to do the intentional activities. So it can sustain, it can make your happiness longer. So if you are happy in your life with your family, maybe with yourself, so of course you can also be happy in your workplace. So if you're happy in your workplace, you can do your work, with stress-free, optimum, and maybe do your job without any, negative emotion that control you on that day. Maybe when you practice the intentional activity every day, you can work with happy, with calm, tranquility, and so on, like that.
All right. Thank you very much.
Okay. Do we have any more questions? Yes. Meanwhile, Aksar, can I hear from you?
Thank you.
Yes.
Thank you, the host. Thank you, everyone. I
Thank
really
you.
hope that maybe some of you can collaborate with me in future. I really love to study on well-being and happiness. So whoever like to collaborate can contact me. I will give my email in the chat box. Thank you very much.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. We are still waiting for the questions. Please remain with us. It's just that I want to test, whatever problems you were facing previously to have presentation from Aksar. So Aksar, can I hear from you?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, ma'am. I can hear you.
Oh, hello. Good. Good to hear from you. Okay. So if we have questions on the previous presentation, which was very interesting, and it has put a lot of responsibility on our shoulders to achieve sustainable happiness and well-being. So if we have questions, we can take questions. Otherwise, we will proceed with Aksar's presentation. Yes. Aksar, meanwhile, you can attach your PowerPoint presentation. If there are still questions, they can come forward.
Ma'am, first of all, you should allow me to share my presentation.
Okay. So let me remove this presentation. Stop sharing. Okay, now check if you can attach your PowerPoint presentation. Meanwhile, I welcome the participants. If they still have questions on the previous presentation, they can ask their questions.
Yes, ma'am. Can it visible?
So far, I cannot see your PowerPoint presentation. And if there is a problem, you can continue without the PowerPoint presentation. Perhaps maybe I can help you if you want that.
But ma'am, I share my screen.
Okay, just a minute.
Now
please.
you can visible my presentation.
Your screen is not visible, but Dr. Gulnaz, I may suggest that allow her to continue presentation, because we may see her presentation during her presentation, because
But my But I
It's
share my
okay.
presentation. I don't know why.
Aksa, it's showing that you have started screen sharing. I think it's just due to poor connections,
Yes, ma'am. It may be.
but we are not able to see your presentation. Dr. Gulnaz, I think let her start.
Yes, Aksa,
It's
you can make
fine.
it. Yes, and Aksa, the simplest thing is that if you open the PowerPoint presentation, maybe it is visible. Even if it is not visible, it's fine. Don't worry about it.
Okay, ma'am. Thank you very
Yeah,
much.
don't worry about it. Just share your research. Your research is on impact of job embeddedness on employee well-being, the roles
Yes,
of
ma'am.
career adaptability and learning commitment. And Aksar Jalil is coming from Rifa International University. Um, yeah. So be
Yes, ma'am.
comfortable and start sharing your research. Don't worry about the PPT. I'll try to
Okay.
attach for you and just start sharing about your research. Be comfortable and you can do it, right?
Okay, ma'am. Thank you, ma'am. Thank you very
You're
much.
welcome.
Bismillahirrahmanirrahim. My name is Aksa Jalil and I am PhD scholar from IFA International University, Islamabad campus. Today I discuss one of the important topic of organization behavior, that is the impact of job awareness on employee well-being, the role of career adaptability and learning commitment. I start my presentations with introduction and background. Due to dynamic environment and technological advancement, organization now more focuses toward improving their business performance by retaining and gaining their. No, ma'am, can you visible?
Yes, Aksa is visible now.
Okay, thank you, ma'am.
Aksa, I'll support you. If I'm lagging behind or somewhere, you can just inform me where to move. I'll move your PowerPoint presentation. That's not a problem, right?
Okay, ma'am. Okay, ma'am. Thank you. This interest had directed the scholar to investigate the further relationship between the job performance and employee intentions. Now, the management scholar more focuses toward a new concept, that why people stay in their job, also called a job awareness. So that as a result of this introduce a new topic, management scholars are more focused to studies and developing different relationship and framework with the sport of why people stay on their job and its impact on individual performance. So on the basis of this research gap, I introduced a job abundance with the association of well-being theory, that is a little slow in management research. And based on this argument, the research goes to reverse this imbalance in job abundance research by exploring the association between the job abundance and employee well-being with the support of COR theory. This study argues that the career adaptability can be considered as a mediator that link the job madness and in impact on employee well-beings. In the era of knowledge-based economy, organizations are trying to improve the quality of their employees and encourage them to learn new skills for seeking the comparative advantage with the help of individual learning commitment. So this study represents the focus of learning commitment as a moderator between the career adaptabilities and job imbalance. As the career adaptabilities enhances employee intentions in their organizations. Next, I go toward my literature review. That first is job awareness with the impact of employee well-being. Job awareness can be described in the social, structural, financial, and psychological element that affect employee decision to keep their existing job, as the introduced by the first Mitchell in 2017. Employee well-being is defined as individual quality of person experience and functioning in the workplace. Employee well-being can be described in many facets, but here we discuss just two main facets, that is a job satisfaction and other is perceived health. Job satisfaction refers as the perceived employee evaluation about their jobs. It is a cognitive assessment of satisfaction by one job in the workplace. On the other hand, perceived health is defined as employee perception about their overall health issues and status. However, according to conservation of resource theory, COS theory, Employees are motivated to keep and store their existing pool of valuable resources, by job maintenance, employee can be better able to enhance and maintain their well-being. Highly embedded individuals are more able to retain their valuable resources and motivated to improve their well-beings by modify their enhancing their job satisfaction and health related issues. Employee link and good fit in an organization produce a playable feelings in the organization, which in turn are initiated a significant impact on employee well-beings. Career adaptability as a mediator. Career adaptability refers as a person compatibilities, knowledge, skills, and resources in dealing with the emotional traumas, shifts, and career-related problems issued by the organization employee during their workplace. With the foundation of CS theory, motivational related individual resources increase a personal development that defines and rise the employee-related well-beings. Jones in 2019 also suggested that the career adaptability is closely related to unique resources that product embedded employee engage in emotional exertions, increase job satisfaction. In addition, Exo 2000, recently 2020 also verified that career adaptability is a personal resources related to self-efficacy and confidence, leading to decrease their health-related issues. Here, in my study, career learning commitment is also act as a moderator role between the job readiness and career adaptabilities. Studies also argue that when embedded employees assume a personal fitness with the organization, they took responsibility of learning commitment for career growth. Few researchers in management studies also suggest that career learning commitment predict employee career growth adaptabilities in workplace. However, there are need to consider which factor that affect embedded employees to learn new skills to improve their career related issues. Here also I discussed some theoretical framework of this study that job embeddedness act as an independent variable and employee well-being is a DV in this studies. Career adaptability act as a mediator between job awareness and employee well-being, and learning commitments as a moderator between job awareness and career adaptability. In this study, three such hypotheses are incorporated. That is, a job awareness will be positive related with employee well-being. Second is career adaptability mediate the relationship between job awareness and employee well-being. And third is learning commitment moderate the relationship between job awareness and career adaptability. Methodology. The population of this research studies include employees from Pakistan, electronic and technological sector, such as Hair, LG, Samsung, and that is a deal with the different big city of Pakistan. Non-probability convenient sampling techniques is are used to collect a response from the target respondent. Around 300 individuals are approached for data collection, and 206 individuals responded. There was a pencil copy questionnaire filled by the response rate is a 69%. The study excluded two time-based time-lag studies.
Hello, Aksa. Hello, Aksa. I can't hear you. I think we need to wait for for a minute or so. Maybe she's back.
Ma'am, can you hear me? Ma'am, can you
Yes.
hear me?
Yes, we can hear you. Please continue.
Aksa is still here. We are trying
Yes,
to
ma'am,
send
can
her
you
a
hear me?
message.
Now can I start it?
Aksa, please continue.
Ma'am, allow me to screen sharing. Ma'am, allow me to first screen sharing. The methodology. The nature of all items are included in my questionnaire. That is also are approved questionnaires. All the items in questionnaire were responded by using 5-point rated scale that start from strongly disagree to agree, strongly agree. The majority of respondents were 26 to 33 years of ages with the 3 and 10 year of job experiences, and total 137 were a men and 69 are of females. Most of them had received their master's degree 68.9, 68.6%, and follows 36.7% responded by receive a bachelor degree. I use smart PLS tools for analysis my data. Here is some measurement
Aksa,
models.
you have 4 minutes.
Here is my measurement model that includes all the items that career adaptabilities had for 24 items that due to some low factor loading 0.6, so that 2 items are of career adaptability are deleted. So this is a direct relationship between job awareness and employee well-being that is a significant at beta value is 0.56. The other is a mediating role of career adaptability that also significant, and this is a partial mediation. Unfortunately, moderation roles are not spotted in our studies. That is an insignificant 0.3.02, and minus beta value is minus 0.056. So in last, my first two hypotheses accepted, and third is not supported in this study data in using the data. Theoretical contribution and managerial application are also incorporated in my research. According to Sia story, embedded employee well-being is a positive behavior, which is a history of their limited resources. The result also important regard of the career construction theory, which further explain that embedded employee in any form of life experience go behavior modification may be in form of adaptability in careers or leading toward a well-being. This study helps to manager to enhance their employee performance by identifying the how employee embedded can effectively achieve their job performance. The distribution of bonuses and rewards and interpersonal dealing can help the valuable exchange information of our embedded employee to develop and career adaptability approach. This study also has some limitations as they are self-based questionnaire are distributed so that common method biases may be disturb these studies. Also that the study is just calculated from the Pakistan. The multi-level multicultural studies can be give a different result from this study. Thank you.
Thank you, Aksa.
Any questions?
Yes, I think we can proceed towards questions and answer session. Though from here we had technology issues, but I hope
Yes, ma'am.
some of the presenters could go with the presentation and you can ask questions.
I am here in very.
All right,
Hello, ma'am. Can you
Aksa.
visible? Can you hear my voice?
Yes, Aksa, we can hear your voice.
So if I had such a disturbance, I am in a village and there's really hard and fast speed not approachable in my village.
Okay. Aksa, can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Aksa, I'm Usman from Namal, Islamabad. I'm lecturing here. I'm very interested in asking you that you have used Smart PLS.
Yes, sir.
But the developer of Smart PLS, Dr. Hare, he writes
Yes.
In his book that his tool or the technique PLSM, this technique was developed for predictive models, where the focus of the study is prediction. But here in your study, the focus is explanation. You have developed a mediation model and
Yes.
a moderated mediation model. So
Yes, sir.
how can you justify using smart PLS for this type of study, where we could expect you to use covariance based SEM or covariance SEM that is implemented in Literal, EQS, MOS, M+, and softwares like this. So what is the reason for you to use smart PLS for analyzing this type of data, the explanatory data?
Yes, sir. In this study, they also refer that you can use such explanatory figures already that tested. So that second thing is it's a easy and new technique to use. Second thing is bootstrapping methods and structure modeling is it is easy to use. That's why I use this methods for analysis of data.
Um, Aksa, I would like to highlight that the assumptions of PLS-SEM are different from those that your data has. So if there is difference in assumptions of the statistical methods and the assumptions of your data, then it is not suitable to use a technique like this in another type of data. So I would like
Yes,
you to
yes,
rethink
it's a
about
better
it.
to use it's a better you use to SPSS and MOS, but this is a new technique, so I utilize these techniques for my model. Next time I will modify these techniques. Inshallah, I will use MOS smart PLS.
Okay,
SPSS, sorry.
and SPSS is not suitable here, by the way, because you are doing
But
latent variable
yes, sir, it's
analysis and not the
CFA. Yes,
observed variable analysis.
sure, sir. Sure, sir.
So it would be more suitable for you to use a covariance based SEM technique or
Yes,
integrated software.
yes, sir. Okay, sir.
I have another question. You have tested your mediation with the help of significance tests. It
Yes, sir.
is widely known among statistical researchers as well as management researchers that the distribution of the multiplication of path A and path B of the mediation is usually non-normal. So they advise us to use bootstrapping method to test indirect effect. So have you used indirect effects for testing your mediation?
Yes, sir, I use indirect effect also. You can see that in this set, A path, and the second is a B path, and then third is a C path. Impact of job madness or career adaptabilities also significant, and also career adaptabilities impact on job madness also is significant, and that is a partial mediation also exists.
So have you used bootstrapping or not?
Yes, sir, 5,000 bootstrapping sample are used.
All right, thank you very much.
All right, thank you very much. And it would be great if other participants, they can also show up and ask questions, because I think most of the questions are coming from Dr. Muhammad Usman. And this is also great support, I would say that, because questions and answers make the session informative, and it should be sort of two-way communication when it comes to the question answer session. We still have time and to take your questions. Meanwhile, we will ask Shumail Rizwan Khan to attach the presentation. Shumail, are you here with us? Meanwhile,
Yes, ma'am,
she
I'm
is
here.
going to put her PowerPoint presentation here. We can take more questions.
I'm just going to try and share my screen, but the presentation has to be off the sharing first. So ma'am, if you can take down the presentation that's already here, I can share my screen. Okay, perfect. Sure. Are you done with the question answers for Access presentation? Should I start?
I think you can start.
Okay. Assalamu alaikum, everyone. First of all, before I jump into the topic of my presentation today, I would really like to say that I'm really honored to be presenting on a NUST platform, and Dr. Rubina being here, who is basically from an institute that made me a researcher. So it's really a pleasure for me to present in this conference right now. The topic for my presentation, based off of my MS research that was also conducted at NUST, is the impact of service learning and civic engagement on psychological well-being of university students in Pakistan. So I would start with elaborating on the idea of psychological well-being, and which really ties in with the keynote, the enlightening keynote that we had at the beginning of this session. And it explains psychological well-being. He highlighted that there is different ideas of psychological well-being that exist, and there's hardly one singular definition that globally we're able to converge on. And the furthest we have been able to converge is to say the psychological well-being has different components. It's not singular, it's multifaceted. And that's exactly what my research is trying to identify, and how it works in university students when they're engaging in altruistic behavior. So psychological well-being's roots can be traced back into the idea of how well-being basically came up as a construct. And it goes back to hedonism, which really explained that personal pleasures and the pursuit of personal pleasures brings about psychological well-being, which was then contested by Aristotle, who brought about the idea of eudaimonism, which said that personal pursuits does not bring about well-being. It's when we contribute to a unit that's larger than ourselves that brings us satisfaction and well-being for a personal element. So if we contribute to a bigger unit than ourselves, that is where we derive our personal sense of well-being, which was later on translated into ideas such as altruism. And altruism, of course, can also be seen as pseudo-altruism, which is driven by social rewards, such as externally driven and reward-driven, which is typically known as external motivators. And then true altruism, which is driven by a person's own incentive, like intrinsic motivation to serve a unit that is larger than their own. Now, both of these ideas are coming from the same eudaimonic perspective of well-being. However, right now in the Pakistani context, I'm going to try to place this idea of well-being in the Pakistani context, and why I chose to study in the student population in regards to service learning and volunteerism or civic engagement is that right now in Pakistan, it's lesser known fact, but over 50 universities coming from both private and public sectors have officially signed up for a Talaries network, which says that they will officially make service learning, which is teaching students civic engagement, as a mandatory part of their bachelor's program, a graduate program, which is a very big step. Considering that we don't know in our region what is the impact of civic engagement on the personal well-being of the person engaging in these behaviors. So we have Western data, and that is also very mixed data of whether it's coming from service learning or civic engagement. But from a Pakistani perspective, 50 institutions, education institutions, which carries most of the educated youth in university in Pakistan, it's a very big step, and it's not research supported. And that is what drew my interest into studying, like, why are we doing this? And is it important to do this? And if it's beneficial for the person executing and engaging in these behaviors, that is absolutely mandatory for them to complete their degree and then go off and do their jobs, right? So over here is basically we're trying to understand why is service learning different from community engagement. Now, with this spread, you can see that service learning, and which is hyphenated as a construct, and it is very deliberate in hyphenation because it brings together the equal reciprocity between the person engaging in an act of service and in an act of learning. So person receiving and giving service both walk a 50-50, and people learning from that activity is also 50-50. Whereas civic engagement is purely driven by the purpose of serving another person, and that is a voluntary act. So, and we learn that moving forward, but right now, this is basically my thought process behind conducting this research. And why are we making something mandatory without understanding what's the impact of it and what's the personal implication of the person engaging in these behaviors? So service learning in my research is defined as the community service learning course that is mandated on the university students at NUST. And the aim of this course is to promote active citizenship among students through a course content designed to raise awareness about the needs of the community and how to actively play a responsible role in addressing those needs. Now, keep in mind that this course is a mandatory course that every graduate student of NUST has to pass in order to earn their degree. And NUST is the only university in Pakistan right now that has a structured mandatory course of the 50 universities that have officially signed up for the Talaries network that says that it is going to make service learning its course as a part of their graduate course. Now, with the service learning course, what it includes workshops and seminars of 1 credit hour each, and that's called the coursework. The field work is at least 30 hours of field work, which is community work, under at least 2 separate activities. And often it's seen that blood drives, blood collection drives, and donation drives, eye exams, or medical camps is something that students have done as a part of their activity. So it can be any community work, which is credited to 1 hour, and they have to provide 2 pictures and a page report for the field assignment. And I'm going into the details so that you understand, which is of course going to be linked with the results. And then at the end of the course, they have to give a reflection, which is an evaluation of the course and what they learned during the course. Now, service learning group and non-service learning group is going to be, is basically how I'm operationalizing students who have completed the service learning course and who have not yet enrolled in the service learning course. So people who are exposed to the course and have graduated from it, and who are not exposed to the course and don't know what it is about. Now, civic engagement is a process that involves 2 components, attitude and behavior. So attitude of a student, and of course, because I'm studying student population, towards the personal sense, and that is not anything to do with their educational institution they're enrolled in or any graduate program, and that's their personal. So civic engagement is the attitude the student has towards a personal sense of civic responsibility that is guided by their belief and perceived ability. And behavior is how that attitude is translated and reflected in their active action. Psychological well-being in my study is defined by the RIFS construct as they define psychological well-being, which is multifaceted, containing 6 components that then pour into an overall score on psychological well-being. So I studied the 6 components and overall psychological well-being, guided by autonomy, environmental mastery, personal growth, positive relations with others, purpose in life, and self-acceptance. Now, so all of these constructs are defined not as less or more of autonomy or less or more of personal growth. The low and high scores on each of these scales are defined differently. So for example, purpose in life, a high would indicate they have goals in life and a sense of directedness, whereas a low would indicate they lack a sense of meaning. So each high and low has their own meaning. It's not one that would be like more or less. Now, for my objectives in the study is to compare the difference in psychological well-being among students who have graduated from the service learning course and who have not yet been exposed to the service learning course, and to study the impact of civic attitude and behavior, which is their personal sense, on psychological well-being, and to study the impact of completion of the course on well-being when civic engagement is kept as constant. Now, these translated into my hypothesis. Students in service learning group will score significantly higher in psychological well-being, and these are the same hypotheses that are included in civic engagement with regards to attitude and behavior as well. And then completion of service learning courses significantly predict psychological well-being among undergraduate students while holding civic engagement as constant. Now, keep in mind that this is coming from a place of understanding psychological well-being for years. However, we are right now in my research, trying to differentiate between the ways in which civic engagement and altruism and volunteerism manifests in our society, and trying to understand.
Shumail, you're left with 5 minutes.
Okay, so I'll skip over from the methodology into the results, so you understand so the story basically links. And so my survey included the scales that I've spoken about, and you can see that it was quite a large number of items that were included, and so it provided an in-depth analysis of the constructs that I was studying. My methodology included trial, pilot, and main phases in the study, just to understand that the scales that I'm using are easily comprehensive to the audience that I'm directing these to. And the main study included 157 and 119 in each group. So different schools of NUST were targeted in the 8th and 6th semester. So the age were comparable, and also the exposure and study. And exclusion and inclusion criteria is here, as you can see. It was kept simplistic. Each student was approached in a group form, and they were offered a coupon because, of course, they were committing to a larger engagement. Now, for the hypothesis, what I found was that service learning did not. So the means that I observed in the hold on, sorry. Yeah, so service learning and non-service learning group did not show a significant difference in their means on the competence of psychological well-being, and contrasting information was revealed that non-service learning group actually had more personal growth scores as compared to the service learning group, so that hypothesis was not proven. And so meta-analysis basically shows that we went into the components of the service learning course that I studied. So we ended up understanding that service learning is not something that would be unstructured and without reflection. The service learning course that I studied in this research basically said that The content is provided. The information about how to execute civic engagement was provided to the students, but they failed to make that information their own, and it failed to become their own personal process due to lack of reflection. And so it, of course, failed to make a personal impact on their psychological well-being because it never became their personal motive. So the motivation was extrinsically driven. So, however, civic attitude and civic behavior, which is intrinsically driven motives, made an impact on psychological well-being that was significant on how, and this is the total score of psychological well-being that you can see. However, autonomy did not take the impact of civic engagement nor positive, and was not significant. However, all the other 5 components of psychological well-being were positively impacted by civic engagement. Now, it was studied that when I looked into why autonomy was not impacted by civic engagement, I understood that autonomy as defined on the RIF scale is an individualistic understanding of autonomy, as we saw on the scales when I went into the low and high. However, in our culture, in the South Asian culture, autonomy is translated differently. It's not individualistic. It is finding a sense of belonging and then exercising autonomy in a unit form, because we belong from a collectivist culture. So individualistic conceptualization creates unfortunate implications for civic engagement in the community. And so what I am studying in civic engagement is contrasting to the definition, the operational definition of autonomy as studied in the RIF scale. Leading to the 4th hypothesis, that service learning course is going to significantly predict psychological well-being. That was also refuted. And it was seen that autonomy was negatively impacted by service learning. And the others were, and this was a significant, if I go back here, it was, so service learning failed to predict any component of psychological well-being significantly. However, autonomy took a negative impact, although it was not significant. And I want to go into the discussion for this, saying the service learning course designs in which reflection and links between what they're doing and what they are learning is not highlighted. And they're not basically taking anything, and they're not taking personal impact of anything that they're doing. It's a task for them. And that is why it's taking away autonomy from these students. It is prescribed in nature, and that is seen to have a negative impact on their personal sense of autonomy as well, which is actually harmful and not helpful. So service learning in itself is understood in the same set of students that when they are voluntarily engaging and intrinsically motivated in civic action, they're taking positive impact. However, when the same is prescribed to them in a mandatory course that they have to do, and they're not able to form a personal reflection from those activities, it impacts their psychological well-being negatively, although that is not significant.
Let's try to conclude because time is up.
Yes, so that brings me to my conclusion, which says that basically pointing towards a sense of psychological well-being is intrinsically motivated. And even if it has to be prescribed and taken into universities, what needs to be considered is the structure of the service learning course, and if it incorporates and facilitates reflection from the students, as only then they will be taking a positive impact on their psychological well-being. And this is the evidence that is coming after 50 universities have signed up in Pakistan to teach and make this course mandatory. So yeah, that was my research. Thank you. I'll stop the share and I'll come back to the, and I'm open for questions.
Yes, Shamal, thank you for the presentation and helping us understand the importance of intrinsic motivation. Perhaps your presentation has important implications in the education sector. So let's move towards questions and answers. And I wish Other participants can also step forward and ask their questions and help us make the session interactive. Yes, I think we have a good list of participants.
Assalamualaikum.
Yes, please.
I would like to ask question from the Shmail. Shmail, first of all, thank you for the contribution. I really appreciate your work. I would like to know, how do you correlate your study with the current situation, with the pandemic? How would you correlate, and what would the outcomes of about from there?
So I think the implications of the study would be exactly the same, as there's even more opportunity, if not less, given that we are now in a crisis mode in globally, really, not just nationally. Given that we are in a crisis, there is further needs of the community that are highlighted. I think that there's more room for civic engagement from the students. What is lacking is, again, if you're making this course a mandatory course for the university students to earn their degree, then it has to have the element of reflection. Now, why are they doing it? Are they only doing it so they can check off something, so they can get their degree and go on with their lives? Or are they doing it so that they create a sense of belonging of the community they're in? And I think right now, even stepping out of the pandemic, socially, that's a personal observation, and really just the personal narratives that I've gathered from people. The sense of community is lacking and is declining in our community. And there are no institutional structures that would facilitate that. If we have the educational institution already present that can inculcate that sense of citizenship and social capital, then that needs to be banked on, but that cannot happen without personal reflection. So yeah, that will be my say on it. Thank you for your question.
Shmail, very glad to see you at this forum. I have just a comment, not a question. It was no doubt excellent presentation and initiative you have taken to work on this service learning course, and students who are learning in this course and not between two groups. But generally, I think there are many other confoundings, like the group who is not taking this course. Maybe they are engaged with some community services programs at their part-time or in the evening after university, or maybe they have some personality attributes prone towards social work, things like that. But I think you have just made comparison of pre-test, post-test within group. You have not compared both groups.
So the civic engagement element was added to address exactly that, what they're doing outside of the institution. And it was seen that the civic engagement, which is their personal voluntary behavior outside of that education institution, whether they are from the service learning group or not from the service learning group, is actually helping them promote their own psychological well-being. So that element was studied in both the groups as well. However, that wasn't hypothesized. So that's why you didn't see in comparison.
Yes, you are right. But I think you have taken the students, the picked up population, that students who are learning at NUST, who are taking admission at NUST. They already...
Yes, because the service learning course is only offered at NUST.
Yes. So maybe if we teach this course to other groups, like the people who are not enrolled in universities, maybe the street children or like that, so that can, I think, give us better impact of this program.
Absolutely. And that is what the research supports as well, that if it's taught at the school level and then continued at the university level, then it has more impact. Absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Dr. Gulnaz, you should not stop Dr. Muhammad Usman for asking question.
I'm so
He-
sorry. I could even see that he has questions. I could even see, yeah. Yeah, please.
because he was asking very good questions, and rather he was giving good suggestions to
Yes,
researchers.
yes, yes. I just wanted other participants to participate as well. Maybe they were becoming passive because this participant is very active. So yes, please, Dr. Usman, please come up with your questions.
Well, thank you very much, ma'am. I do not mind. I think I have asked enough questions, and the Shumail was brilliant in delivering her research. Unfortunately, I don't come from the education background, so I'm unable to recall any questions for her. It was, by the way, very brilliantly delivered presentation.
Thank you, sir.
So do we have any more questions? And it would be great if other participants can also show up. Let's make the session interactive. And I think this is it is through interaction and question and answer that our learning takes place and our well-being increases when we interact in a positive manner. So let's contribute. And I would encourage especially students who are here, please come forward and ask your questions. And meanwhile, I would like to recheck with the last participant if she's still here while waiting for the question, because I couldn't see in the participant list Rubina Koser. I would still like to give a last call. I can't see over here. If she's here, please show up. And meanwhile, we can take questions from Shamail because she has, I think her research has given us insight about how we can actually contribute as academician, and just like the way Dr. Rubina said, how we can reach out to other population as well, that this is something insightful. Definitely one research leads to some other studies. There is always a limitation to every research, and we will move towards the session of the chair later after giving a call to Rubina Koser. I think she is not here. I think she is not here. Do we still have questions from Shumail? Do we have still questions? Otherwise, we will move towards the session chair. Not really. I think we should move
Assalamualaikum.
Walaikum assalam.
Doctor, I saw from your earlier slide that you are telling us the larger domain of altruism is maybe the spectrum of the happiness itself. How do we relate the altruism with happiness or well-being?
Thank you, Dr. Rashid, for asking that question. When you were presenting, I was thinking the same thing. These, from what I understand about happiness and psychological well-being, they originate from the same idea of hedonism and then eudaimonism that was the earlier philosophical debate. And of course, because all sciences originate from philosophy, we can, I think, relate back to the same stem, where happiness is also, from my understanding, happiness is also coming from these two ideologies, and the dichotomy then came into, a scientific study, and then proving and disproving whether serving personal interest is going to lead to happiness, or contributing to somebody else's service is going to be a reason why somebody would feel happiness. However, well-being is something that is more sustained, and happiness is more of an emotional state. So well-being, basically, we understand well-being as a multifaceted construct that is sustained over time, more like contentment, and happiness is more of an emotional state. This is my understanding. Yeah, that's what I would say.
So thank you. Any more questions from Shumail? Okay,
Thank you, Doctor. Thank you so much. So this is how you see well-being connected to altruism, right?
So if you're asking about well-being connected to altruism, then in my study, basically, I see that altruism, when it's intrinsically driven, leads to psychological well-being, which of course is then serves as a personal reward, and then person engages with it over and over. So there's a high correlation in that. Yes.
Okay, so it's related in that way, right?
Yes.
Okay. As you said,
Can
that they
I-
have two dimensions of eudaimonia and hedonia, right? So maybe I seen that your research is to eudaimonia or eudaimonic dimension, right? Oh,
Yes, yes, it is coming from the eudaimonic perspective. Absolutely.
May I contribute to this discussion?
Yes, please.
Okay, we usually work on a theory that is known as affective events theory. It was presented by Vicente Penzano back in 1996. In that theory, they propose that personality affects emotions. It directly affects emotions. So coming back to the question of Dr. Rashid, not only these two concepts, altruism and the happiness, not only they are correlated, but in fact, there can be a directional impact of altruism on happiness. Altruism, we usually measure it as a personality trait, a consistent personal characteristic of human beings. And happiness is a type of emotion that we also measure. So there is high probability that altruism can have positive impact on happiness, but it can also have negative impact in certain cases. So this is a really interesting idea for me, especially for me to explore. Thank you very much for this.
yeah, that
having
is
this
very
discussion.
interesting to explore on that concept, right?
Thank you. Thank you very much.
So do we have any more questions from Shamail? Okay, we cannot see our last presenter, Rubina Koser, on the list of participants. And I think we can move forward if we do not have questions. Yes, can we move forward now? So I think we should move towards session chair. Dr. Rubina Hanif, Professor Dr. Rubina Hanif is the session chair with us. Thank you, ma'am, for joining today. Currently, she is serving as a director at the National Institute of Psychology, Quaid-e-Azam University, Islamabad. She has completed her PhD and MPhil from Quaid-e-Azam University. She is honored to have completed 2 postdocs, one from the University of London, UK, and she's also a Fulbright scholar from the University of Houston. Her professional and research interests revolve around educational psychology, psychometric assessment, occupational health psychology, social psychology, and positive psychology. Thank you for being with us, and we will move towards you. So thank you.
Okay, thank you very much, Dr. Gulnaz and Professor Dr. Salma Siddiqui for inviting me as session chair for this international conference on well-being and interdisciplinary perspective. And I would like to thank the organizers of this conference as well, who have invited me and organized this conference on such a important topic that is actually the need of time when people are after pandemic suffering a lot of problems and they really need guidance for achieving the sustainable well-being and mental health. During today's session, there were 5 presentations and all were in different domains but relating to the work, to the well-being. And I think I need not to go one by one. Overall, all presentations were excellent. Presenters have done their best in presenting, and I would also like to thank Dr. Muhammad Usman, who have given valuable suggestions to the presenters. I think it's very rare that in any conference you get suggestions to improve your work. So I would say that the presenters are fortunate that they get advice from experts as well, because due to lack of time, mostly in conferences we just present through our work and then we move back. So overall, my experience in this session was excellent, and I have also learned many things and new perspectives of individuals. Like for me, the career barriers, that was a qualitative study. That was really a new dimension that I think I also need to explore. Um, if I give my opinion on the concept of well-being, it's just simply, if I define what well-being is, it is just about how we are doing as individuals in our personal life and at our workplace and in our community. So it's well-being is just not about a person, it's about your people around you, with whom you are working, and for your community as well, and in broader perspective for your nation. And actually this is how sustainable your work or your doing is, how sustainable is for future. If it is sustainable for future, then we can see that you are actually you are at the like peak of your well-being, and you have achieved the well-being. You can say that you are a well-being person, you have good mental health. um, we know that there are a lot of trainings and a lot of interventions, lot of tips that we get from our books, from Google, from our researches. If I simply tell you 5 simple things that need to keep in mind, you can get good mental health and you can achieve the well-being. What are these 5 things? Number 1 is be connected. When I say be connected, it's be connected to yourself first of all, because the first thing is that you need to be aware about yourself. Be connected to your emotions, your feelings, your resources, and everything. So you need to take care of yourself. Then with your relationships, your relationships are very important. You need to be connected with them, you need to take care of them, you need to spend quality time with your relationships. Then be connected to your community, what you are serving for your community. If you are not productive for your community, you are not uh, uh, achieving a good health. You cannot say that you are a mentally healthy person. So be connected to yourself, your relationship, your community, and your nation as well. Okay. The second thing that you need to keep in mind is be mindful. You need to be aware of your present feelings, your present emotions, your surroundings. If you are aware and you are living in your present, you are spending mindful life, then you are a healthy person. Okay. The third thing is be positive. You need to opt positive behaviors, positive attitudes. These are very simple things. We need not to I think we need not to um, do much if you are paying gratitude to people who are giving us something, who are working for us, who are helping us, or even someone has done simple thing for us. If we just say thank you to that person, it means a lot. Positive behaviors like being kindful, being thinking positive, and everything that can show that you are a positive person. So this is the third simple thing that you need to do. Next, fourth one is the be genuine. This is one thing that you need to be aware of your resources, what you can do, what you can't do. This is very important. If you will go beyond your resources, that will stress yourself. So no need to stretch yourself and uh, uh, to I think to run behind the things which are not in your control. So the things which are in your control, you need to realize that you can do that. If you can't do that, that is beyond your control, leave it to God. Believe in God, He will help you. And then if you think that there is something wrong with your personality or with your psychology, then there is no harm to consult some professional. This is very important that uh, realize what your condition is. If you need some help from expert, you should accept this thing and you should go for help. This is very important, that go for help if you need from some expert, like you go for doctors if you are physically ill. Same thing is for psychological health. You need to consult the expert if you need that. And the last thing that is important to be healthy is be active. Instead of just planning, imagining the things that you should achieve it, go for it. Only thinking about the goals is not important. You need to act upon, you need to do something to achieve your goals. So these are 5 things from my knowledge, from my research. I have learned that these are the things. If we try to practice these 5 things, we can live a healthy life. So this is all from my side. If any one of you have any question, I am here to answer you. And once again, thank you very much, organizers, participants, and all the audience for being with us in this session. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Dr. Rubina. With such a simplicity and with such a clarity, you helped us understand what are key, components, what can actually lead to well-being. And yes, do we have anything to discuss on these ideas? Dear participants, do you have something to discuss on these ideas? Yes, definitely. Thank you for sharing wisdom with us, Dr. Rubina. This is Shamail saying to everyone, yes. Do we have to conduct any discussion around this?
Assalamualaikum. Can I ask Prof. Rubina?
Yes.
I mean, regarding the point that Prof said just now, is one of that is be positive. So nowadays, the term quite familiar in Malaysia, like the toxic positivity amongst, students, university student. When someone have some problem or difficulties, we keep on asking be positive until, they feel irritated by that. And I've read about the fix and grow mindset of framework. So can Prof maybe give a little bit tips how we can actually inculcate or cultivate the seeds of positive or optimist, I can say, because there's different between optimist and positive, right? So how we can do that to people who having difficulties or hardship during the COVID-19?
Okay, thank you very much. Very important question. Yes, when we say that be positive, some people get irritated, and sometimes we also think that these are words, only words. How can we practice it? So for being positive, I think for being positive, we need to get engaged first. For students, if you try to engage your students in positive activities, and then you try to resolve their problems which you can, like after in this post-COVID academic world, I have seen that we need to motivate our students how to remain in class for 1.5 hours even, because you must have seen that students are demotivated, don't want to attend a complete full class of 1.5 hour class even. They want to leave class after 30 minutes. They are so irritated and things like that. This is all because they are actually, due to COVID, they were demotivated, they were getting away from their goals. So firstly, you need to guide them to set their goals. For this, like in our university, we have practice consultation classes. It was never held before COVID. For this semester, we held consultation classes for each subject. If you have two classes with each subject with your students, we added one more class in a week. That was a consultation class. In that class, teacher discussed with students just like maybe academic things or non-academic things, ideas from students. So these things help students to get engaged with their academic world. And when they will get engaged, they will remain busy, uh, they can be more mindful then, and then they can, I think, practice easily these positive behaviors and attitudes. So first thing is, let them be engaged in some activity, productive activity. You need to include students in decision making as well. Only recreational activities are not to get them relaxed. They get relaxed when we listen them.
Yeah, very true. Thank you. Thank you very much, Prof.
Yes, do we have any questions? Because I think we can learn from Dr. Rubina's wisdom. And during the pandemic, I think we are all challenged in terms of our well-being and in almost in all these settings. Yes, do we have anything around the concept of well-being to discuss? Else, we will move towards concluding this session. Okay, I think we can move towards conclusion and concluding the session because we have to close till 1 p.m. So thank you, Dr. Rubina, for the words of wisdom. Okay, we had a number of challenges during the session, and your tolerance, support, patience, and positive contributions has actually contributed to the session and to make it successful. During this session, we had our session chair and keynote speaker with us. We learned from their wisdom and from their research. During the session, we also had 5 presentations, and the 5 presentations, they revolved around qualitative research, quantitative research. During the whole session, we learned about the importance of careful sampling methodology. Questions were raised around analysis. Participants, they showed their interest in reaching out different samples and settings for extending the research on well-being. So I would like to say that I would like to appreciate everyone's contribution, starting from the keynote speaker to the session chair. All of you have made your time and given the worthy contribution and helped us learn through this session. So thank you so much. With this, we are closing our session on individual workplace well-being. The session is moving towards closure. So thank you, Dr. Jawad Sayed and Dr. Rubina Hanif, for supporting throughout and helping us learn. Thank you. Thank you, dear participants, for all your presentations, especially Muhammad Usman Beg, who has been asking positive questions. So all this experience has contributed to mental health. We are more confident to think and work around the concept of well-being. So thank you so much.
Thank you very much, ma'am.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you, everyone. Thank you.
Thank you. And Allah Hafiz. Thank you.
Allah Hafiz.
Allah Hafiz.